the inner circle of the existential zone. It's a little unusual today because I'm not at home in my normal office. I am in the Isle of Wight. I've done this before, but it seems to have been a little bit harder to set it up today. But I think this should probably work. I don't see any of you here yet, so I have no idea where you are, members of the inner circle. But then it's just turned 4 o'clock now. Ah, there's Deborah. Hi, Emmy and friends. Good to see you. Hi, Pauline. Yes. Okay. Well, I'm glad you were able to find it. I wasn't able to set it up any earlier, so it's a bit different. And I'm doing it on my iPad, so I don't have the usual facilities. There's no link to this session on my laptop. Well, that doesn't surprise me. Hello, hi, Alicia. Yeah, so I'm doing it on my iPad. So quality less good, but I hope you can hear me even so. Can you confirm that it's all clear? And says, hi, Emmy, Deborah, Pauline, and Alicia. I didn't get previous notification. That's right. That's because I was unable to set it up earlier. You've come via iPhone. Ah, so you're the same in a way. Emmy can hear and see you well. That's helpful, Deborah. Thank you. That's good. Hi, Ron and Anne, says Alicia. Good connection, says Pauline. Well, that's a nice surprise. And Barbara says hello from Sweden. Good to see you, Barbara. We'll need to hear more from you. Tell us a bit more about yourself. And Varakino's here. Hi, Robin. Hello, everyone, he says. And hello, Barbara, says Deborah. Yeah, this is a new person joining us. Good morning, all. It may very well be, my friends, that this is publicly visible rather than being in our inner circle, because I wasn't quite sure what I was doing there. So hopefully some new people will join us and they'll realize that if they join the inner circle, they can come and have these conversations with us every Sunday at 4 o'clock, where we talk about the special readings I do for this group, and also about other things, some of the other videos I have posted. For instance, this week I posted a new song. There's Peggy, hello to all, and Deborah, hello Eva, wonderful to hear you are safe. Yes, Eva, it is wonderful to see you and hear you're safe. Hello all of you, says Eva. Eva, we missed you. Glad to see you again. And people are saying hello, Peggy, because Peggy is also fairly new still, but has been a few times previously. It's really great to see that. And let's see, I have chat viewing options, top chat, live chat, super chat, and none. I think it's probably top chat I want. Yes. Great to see you here, Eva. Wish you peace, says Anne. And Deborah says, hello, Peggy. And that disappears again. And Pauline says, hello, all. And Alice says, Eva, heart. Yeah. Yeah. And Deborah says, Emmy, I love your new song. I'm a child of the universe. I'm very glad you do, Deborah. When I post a new song, I'm always very keen to have some feedback, because it's always an experiment and quite a jump in, and it's always lovely to have feedback, and your feedback was just so kind and so lovely, so thank you for that very much. Has everybody else had a chance to have a look at the new song, Child of the Universe? I'd love you to, and I'd love to hear some comments. Yeah. So Deborah says, today's Mother's Day in the UK. Happy Mother's Day to the mothers of humans and animals. Yes, see the flowers there? And that's my Mother's Day flowers from my offspring. Send it over here, especially. So that was a lovely surprise. Deborah says, I love the seagull and nature clips. Haha. I took those when I went to the Netherlands in December last year, well, just a few months ago. And that was taken on the beach where I grew up. So it was highly meaningful to me because that idea of being a child of the universe was very much linked with being a teenager and roaming around on that beach quite a lot. So I wanted to take all these clips. Most of the clips are from there. There are a few from the Isle of Wight, I think, but mostly they're from the beach in The Hague where I grew up. So yeah, thanks for noticing the seagulls. The seagulls, when I was a little girl, we lived in a flat which overlooked the dunes, so literally 100 yards from the beach. And yeah, she remembers, says Deborah. Okay, that's great. And we had the seagulls coming to our windows every day, and they'd fly past a particular window that we used to open, and they'd tap on the window with their beaks, and then we would throw the leftovers of the cheese and the bread out of the window, and none of it would fall on the ground. There would be so many seagulls catching it in flight. It was quite extraordinary. So yeah, Deborah says hello, Caroline, and um, and let's see, I've missed lots of things there, so I need to go back. So yes, clips of the beach, yes. Love the seagull and nature clips. Thank you all. Wonderful guys, says Eva. Yeah, it's lovely to see you here. And it's Digby's birthday today. Digby's 78 today. So we came to the island to celebrate Digby's birthday. And Jerome says Doundorp. No, not Doundorp. Kijk Down. I grew up in Bohemen near Kijk Down. And yeah, that's the beach that I used to go to, and that's the beach in my video there. But yeah, Duindorp, that's more Scheveningen, isn't it? So live chat. Happy birthday, Professor Digby. I will pass that on. Thank you. Rowan asks, how are you? Well, fine. Thank you. Nice place. Luis Sanchez says beach scene. Yeah, I can see that this live session is available online, not just in the inner circle, guys. I'm sorry to my inner circle friends. There are now 26 people on here. It's lovely to see all the new faces. But normally, this live chat on a Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. is only open to members of the inner circle. So, welcome to all you people who have found it here on the channel. And we hope that you like chatting with us here because this is what we like to do. And yeah, beach scenes are always wonderful, says Louis. I agree. Rowan says, you're very beautiful. Well, that's an unusual thing to be hearing about. Deborah says, this happened last time, remember? Yeah, I think it happened when I was on the iPad before, because on the iPad you can't program it in the same way. When I go, I'll have to figure that out, obviously. Or I'll have to bring a computer with me here. I don't have a computer here, you see, but I didn't want to cancel the session, so I thought we'll do it on the iPad, and it's quite nice. Happy birthday, Digby, says Eva. I will tell Digby happy birthday. He's 78 today. Yeah, quite an age, says Anne. It is quite an age. Happy birthday, Professor Digby. Yeah, indeed. I was very worried about Digby today. because he just fell off the pontoon into the water and had to be helped out of there. It's quite dangerous. He has a bit of a balance problem sometimes. So, yeah, it's obviously something to bear in mind at a certain age, not to walk on slippery pontoons near boats when it's been raining and everything is slippery. Very, very worried about him when that happened. But he's okay. He's come out and he's fine. But we enjoy the others, except please consider joining the inner circle. Yeah, consider joining the inner circle so that you can join us every Sunday. Absolutely. I think I just saw a question there that needs answering. How did you get into existential therapy? Well, what a very good question that is. I will tell Digby to take care, Pauline. How did I get into existential therapy? Well, it goes like this. I was a very philosophical child. I used to have lots of conversations with my mother, who was quite a big reader and worked in a library. And tell me how to increase my subscription. No, I don't think we'll have that conversation. And I became quite sure when I was a teenager that I wanted to find out how to live a better life and how to um, understand better what it means to be a human being and what the human condition, presents us with, and how we need to learn to deal with that. So I decided to study philosophy, and I grew up in the Netherlands. So I um, I went to a secondary school where I studied the classic languages of Latin and Greek, as well as lots of other things like algebra and history and German and French and English and all sorts of things. Greetings from tropical Florida. Lovely to see you there. I'll carry on with my story. And then, yeah, when I was studying Greek, we started to translate Plato, the texts of Plato. And I sort of fell in love with Socrates. I really loved the way in which Socrates conducted dialogues with ordinary people. Instead of pontificating as a philosopher, he engaged with ordinary people in the streets of Athens, and he had conversations about what things mean and what things actually are. And he showed people that they know a lot more than they realize, and that it is very important for them to reflect on life. And this way of reflecting of life became second nature for me. And so I decided I would go to university after I finished my secondary schooling. And I went and had a look at Leiden University in the philosophy department. And I met with the professor, who was called Professor Van Persen, very similar to my own name, for Professor Van Persen. And he was very critical of my way of approaching Socrates and Plato. And I could see that studying, can you see Bruno there? Yeah, he's with me. Uh, yeah, Bruno is behind me on the bed here in the bedroom. Yeah. And I could see that I was not going to enjoy studying philosophy in that kind of way. So I decided to go to France instead. And I moved at the age of 18 on my own to France and went to study at Montpellier University. And I stayed in France for 7 years, and I finished first a master's degree in philosophy, and learned a lot about phenomenology and existentialism. And then I started working in psychiatric hospitals. And as I worked with the patients there, it became obvious to me that actually, yes, I could use my philosophical understanding and make sense of their preoccupations and their predicaments in that philosophical way. And so I began to take an interest in other people who had done that. And I got into people like, well, obviously, I read the whole of Freud and Jung and Medard Boss and Ludwig Binswanger. And then I realized I better go back to university. I did another first degree in psychology, and then I did a master's in clinical psychology and a training in sort of psychoanalytic psychotherapy whilst continuing to work in mental hospitals, but all the while realizing that I didn't want to work in this psychoanalytic or psychological way only, although it gave me lots of new ideas and new instruments. I decided I needed to figure out how to bring my philosophical existential investigations into my work with patients. And I worked in some very amazing hospitals and with some very amazing people in France, in a hospital called Saint Alban, which is a hospital where all the patients were engaged with, yeah, and engaged with work. And we learned that really we need a different way of working with mental health problems. And so my French husband and myself moved to London, where we were invited to come work with what was then called the critical psychiatrists or the anti-psychiatrists. And we lived in a therapeutic community. And I realized that even there, where I thought people were doing existential work, there were very few people who were really properly applying existential and philosophical ideas to the work. And so from that moment on, which was in 1977 when I moved to the UK, from 1977 onwards, I started to teach my own ideas about how to bring philosophy, especially phenomenology and existentialism, into the work with psychotic patients mostly, but also with all sorts of other problems. But of course, for many, many years, I worked mostly with people with psychosis. So that is how I got into existential psychotherapy. And I called it existential therapy because I knew what I was doing was not the same as other things that already existed, especially Dasein's analysis, which was Medard Boss's way of applying Heideggerian ideas to psychotherapy. And Dasein's analysis carries on to this day. And also Viktor Frankl, of course, did this in a way, but not systematically using philosophical ideas, because he simply used his own ideas and really created his own form of therapy called logotherapy. And in the United States, of course, there were others who were doing this too. And that turned into humanistic psychology. So that was people like Maslow and Carl Rogers, and also, very importantly, Rollo May, who then taught Irvin Yalom and other people. And so there are these different streams of people who have developed existential applications to psychotherapy. My own path really came a little bit from R.D. Laing's work, because I did move to London to work with him, but he wasn't really applying philosophical ideas. He was just not wanting to work in a classical way, but he wasn't teaching people how to use philosophical approaches to working with people. What he did teach, though, which was an important liberation, is to be free in your work, not to do what other people teach you, but to actually listen to your patients and to figure out what is actually happening for them instead of putting some diagnosis on them. So that is how I got into existential therapy. I hope I have answered that question pretty well. So, by the way, after I came to the UK, I then did a PhD in social sciences, but that was really in philosophy. So, I went back to philosophy at that point. And although I have worked for 53 years as a psychotherapist, I have always, always felt that really I was a philosopher. Now, the story about how I got to do this is in my new book, which is called Beginning to Live. And my new book will actually come out on the 14th of May. And I will be doing several launch events, which you're all invited to. And I will do a message on the YouTube channel. And with a link to how you can join one of those launch events, because it would be very nice to have some of my inner circle people there. So there'll be two online launch events, and I will give you links to both of them when I have them. Now here's another question. Pauline is asking me a question. So let me go back to that, Pauline. I didn't quite catch that. It's a huge question, Emmy, and one I found confusing myself. What is actually happening to me? Missed it again. It keeps disappearing. It's so annoying. And it's 4 quadrants. Is a way to explore that. Yeah. Well, that you will find that in the book. Yeah, four quadrants. So it's a dimensional approach to really get a hold of yourself. You need some ground under your feet, right? So to find your way in life, I came to conclude you need a map and you need a compass. Now, the map is the map of human existence, and the compass is the compass of your emotions, but that's also the compass of your sensations, of your thoughts, and of your moral intuitions. So in my work, I've written 20 books before, academic books. In my work, I always apply systematically those ideas that you need a map to find your way in the world, and you need a compass to know whether you're going in the right direction. And that compass comes from the things you experience, your sensations, your feelings, your thoughts, your intuitions. So you need those. None of those are inopportune. They are all useful and helpful, and they will show you the way. And if you are lost, you should always be able to find your way again. If you have a sense of the map of your existence and you have a good idea of the direction you want to go in. So that is why I use those 4 different areas, and each of those 4 areas has 4 areas in it as well. And in each of those areas, there are polarities. Right, so Pauline says, thanks, Emmy. I feel I'm in a groundless place. Oh, that sounds very unpleasant, Pauline. Dark night of the soul. I think help reflecting with another is the way to find my way out. Absolutely, Pauline. It's really, really important to find yourself again. And to sending you love and light, says Alicia. Pauline. Yes, Pauline, we would very much like the help. And maybe, somebody in the group would like to have a chat with you after the session and show you that you're not alone. Of course, if you ever wanted to have some therapy, you can always apply to our low-cost clinic. We have a low-cost clinic at the Existential Academy where I supervise 3 students. So 3 of the therapists will be directly supervised by me. And Digby supervises, I think, 8 students. So you'd be either supervised, your therapist would either be supervised by Digby or by myself. And the sessions are £25 an hour, which is very, very cheap indeed. And you're very welcome to apply for a place. And all you have to do is to go to existentialacademy.com and write to helen.araromi and say you would like to be in the low-cost clinic. Or you go to Dilemma Consultancy, dilemmaconsultancy.org, and there you will be able to find direct information about the low-cost psychotherapy clinic. The low-cost psychotherapy clinic is entirely staffed by, the work is done by our doctoral students, and doctoral students do 4 years of training, and they do 3 years. So the first year is just theoretical, but the last 3 years they're doing clinical placements. And Dilemma Consultancy, our psychotherapy consultancy, takes some of those students on placement and we teach them how to do existential therapy. So, yeah, it is definitely an option for you. If you're feeling low, you can go to the Dilemma Consultancy and ask for a place in a low-cost clinic. And you may well end up being interviewed by me because I interview every single client that my doctoral students work with personally so that I know the person and that I can really supervise my student rather than guessing at it, and that I really know who they're talking. Save me a space for vocation and fellowship. Well, yes. Fellowship is also very important, isn't it? And that is what we are finding here in the inner circle of our channel here. That is what we do. We support each other here. We meet every Sunday and we talk about life and about difficulties, and we support each other to understand things better and to give each other a sense of how important it is to have this kind of tribe to belong to, so that you don't feel out on a limb and you don't feel alone on your own. And yeah, the clinic provides low-cost service. Wishing you peace. Thank you very much, Pauline. I hope that you find a place in it if you need it. That is what it's there for. And let's see. Let me see. I'm missing loads of questions, I think. Hi, Emmy. Love your philosophies, says Aber Design. Thank you. I'm learning so much from you. Well, thank you. And thank you, Alicia, says Phaedre. Best wishes to you, Pauline, says Caroline. That sounds awesome. Always share your ideas. The world needs it. Yeah, you're awesome. Thank you for doing what you do. And I just wanted to say, your videos, especially on fear, helped me a lot during a difficult time in my life. You also inspired me to sharing my philosophical ideas. Ace, I'm really pleased to hear that. We need more people who talk about philosophy and who are willing to help each other with philosophy. The problem with philosophy, though, is that many theoretical philosophers use philosophy not to help people, but to argue with people and to just be skeptical about everything and to sometimes attack ideas and undermine people's confidence. So I know how important it is to balance, on the one hand, the philosophical approach, which looks carefully at your values, at your ideas, at your assumptions, and challenges them, on the one hand, and on the other hand, to have the sensitivity and the supportiveness that comes with a psychotherapeutic approach, where you listen instead of arguing, where you find out what is important for another person, and you find out why they have come to see life in the way they have, because there are good reasons why people end up believing certain things or end up in certain difficult positions. And as you know, being in a tight spot or having a dark night of the soul is a very important human experience that each of us needs to go through in order to start really thinking about life properly, carefully, and from a position of real experience rather than from pretense. It's not about trying to appear to know or trying to argue so that you're stronger than others. It's about coming together and giving each other the benefit of our knowledge and our experience and even our wisdom. And in that way, to each learn more, to contribute to each other's learning, to contribute to each other's understanding, to contribute to the quality of life in this world, which is so often very poor, where we just rush around trying to achieve things, trying to earn more money or get more praise, rather than trying to be the best human being we can be and trying to support one another in this world, which so badly needs that kind of human understanding and human kindness, because it's missing a lot. It's all about competition and about winning, and it's all about looking after number one, and not enough about actually being seen and heard and care and being open to others, but also open to yourself, my friend, because we often forget to spend time with ourselves. We forget that we need to take time to truly find out what goes on inside of us and to truly discover where we want to go in life and what it is we want to do with the life we have, which is so precious. But we often forget how precious it is, don't we? We often think it's rubbish because things get so difficult. And so we get out of touch with everything that we have been given and that we don't always make very good use of. But we do need to learn to make good use of it. And we can do that. We can make much, much more of our lives than we often do. We can be much more aware of who we are and much more aware of what other people around us need and what their preoccupations are. And so, this is what we often try to do in this group. We try to be kind to each other and to be helpful to each other and to get to know each other better. Varakino says it seems as if in the decades past these ideas and principles were taught in the home But then around the 70s and 80s, society took a negative turn. Well, society got very busy, didn't it? So when both men and women are at work, it's hard when you come home to still have attention to the kids, other than just to be there for them and feed them or play with them. It's much harder to remember that there are all these other tasks of just being together and listening to each other and teaching these life skills and these principles to children. It's the same in schools. People try really hard in schools sometimes to teach new life skills and to teach kids to be kind, but there's very few schools still that do that. There's so much more that is needed. And it can't just be about something you have to do. It is only going to really work if a child experiences this for themselves and if they truly get the feel of another person, another child, or even the teacher or their parent. And it is so, so easy to walk past that and to just think in terms of what marks a child is getting or how well they're doing at their math or their language and how much work we give them to do. That is sort of stultifying and deadening. Yeah, children, exactly, Robin. Repeat what they experience. That's absolutely right. And what they experience is very often haste. They see adults who are overwhelmed and who are hasty and who are in a rush and who have other priorities than being with one another in peace and quiet and with proper attention to each other. To pause for thought and to listen to each other and to our living concerns is a very central, important thing to do. And we need to take more time for that because we don't, not enough. So Alicia says, Emmy, I like this week's reading about how life is not about only happiness. Absolutely right. It's not about only happiness or avoiding all suffering, but about living fully and in an engaged way. Well, thank you. That's Alicia. That really sums it up, doesn't it? It's to allow yourself to actually come to life. It's to allow yourself to feel life in yourself, to actually experience the depth of it, the meaning of it, to feel the flow of it, and to remind yourself what you're here to do, which is to be you. It's not about seeking stuff or seeking happiness, and it's not just about suffering. It's about going through all these different experiences and all these different emotions so that you can become more open, more aware, more real, more knowledgeable, more experienced, and more wise. At the end of the day, it is to acquire wisdom that we are in the world. Alicia says, with that, I want to get better at feeling the flow of life. Yeah, absolutely. And all of us can improve on that so much, Alicia. Not just choosing to be present only when I'm happy or confident. Absolutely spot on. This is exactly where so many people go wrong. They're quite happy to open up and say, oh, let's just feel the peace and the sunshine and the goodness. And that's great. But actually, it is about now, you know? This moment, whatever the moment is, allow it. Allow yourself to breathe a little bit more deeply. As you blow out that breath, feel the power of your own breath. Like a dragon, you are like a dragon. And when you take in the breath, feel the power of the world. Feel the power of the air that is there for you. And allow this air to stream into your lungs and feel the air going deep inside your body. Feel it plummeting down, all the way down your tummy, all the way down. And take it in and then push it out again like the dragon. And know this is what you're here to do. To take in what is in the world, what is here for you, and to do something with it. On the one hand, to use it for your survival and your thriving, your flourishing, and on the other hand, to use its energy to push something good out back into the world. You take something good from the world, you use it to thrive, and you give back something good. Robin Farrakino says, in one of your recent short videos, you spoke about recalibrating yourself by reaching out to nature. That is on my schedule for today. I notice how wonderful, this will be another entry, which I don't see yet. I notice how wonderful nature is, but I rarely visit it. Oh, this is so true, Robin. We all do this. And this is where Bruno comes in. Of course, for me, Bruno is the absolute reason why every morning, first thing, after my stretching and a little bit of breakfast and washing, I go into nature for half an hour, 40 minutes. And at midday, before I have a bit of lunch, Bruno takes me into nature for half an hour, 40 minutes. And at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I go out into nature and I spend probably half an hour playing with Bruno in the garden. And I might do that again a little bit later after dinner in summer, maybe not in winter, but then I'll play with him in the house. Nature is my church, says Deborah. Nature is a holy place. Nature is sacred. In nature, when I'm surrounded by trees and the good air that they have created for me, you know, the highly oxygenated air that trees give you, I don't just feel reinvigorated by what I breathe because the trees has given it to me. I also know that I'm attuning, as you say, recalibrating myself. I'm retuning myself to what's there. And there is a lot there that isn't just about trees and bushes and sky and ground and leaves and grass and all that kind of thing, not to mention the squirrels and the rats and the mice and all the other creatures we see. It is about everything there and the whole arrangement. It is where we belong, my friend, and we recalibrate because it is bigger than us and stronger than us and it looks after us. And if we listen to it and we spend enough time there and we touch the tree and we speak to nature, nature will answer all of your questions, because it is huge and it is cyclical and it is vigorous and it is reinvigorating and it is calming and it is peace giving. And this is what you need every day of your life, because your vitality is your natural instinct. It is you being an animal. And as an animal, you need to be in nature. You need to be surrounded by trees and by good air and by skies and by ground under your feet that isn't paved over and that sends amazing smells, fragrances so rich to you. And you see now in the chat, there are several people reporting about their relationship to nature, which is highly enriching. And Caroline says, always surprised by how refreshed I feel after being in nature. Absolutely. And there are people talking about hugging trees. And yes, that is a very sound thing to do. And I personally like just put my hand on a tree and feeling it and trying to feel what life is running through it and how powerful that is. Tropical greenhouse in Kew Gardens. Beautiful, Anne, isn't it? Yes, going to parks in London has always been my lifeline when I was a commuting worker in central London. Parks, so wonderful. Every lunchtime, even when I was working full time, I tried to go into a park. I was very lucky for a while to actually work in Regent's Park and to have all of that just so nearby. And even then, of course, I didn't do it every day because there were always more important things, right? Except that there weren't, my friend, because what is more important than reminding yourself of your origins and reattuning yourself to the vitality that you need in order to function in an organic way, in order to function in a biodynamic way, in order to function fully and properly. You can't do it without retreating back to where you came from, your origin, nature. Nature is stronger than anything human beings have created. But sometimes human beings work with nature and then we're at our best. So, my friends, we are coming to the end. Deborah says, thank you, Emmy, and everyone, in wishing you all peace and love. Peace and love to everyone who was on this call, and for all those who weren't actually in the inner circle but who came here today. An open invitation for you to join our inner circle and to see you again next week at 4 o'clock on Sunday when we have our live sessions for anyone who wants to join. I hope you've enjoyed it. I have enjoyed seeing up to 40 people here at any one time today, but I also love it when we're a smaller group in the inner circle, because sometimes we can be a little more intimate in that way. Thank you all for being there. Peace, love, self-compassion, and confidence, my friend. Find your inner truth. Listen to yourself and find who you are, and be kind to yourself before you're kind to other people, because you can't pour from an empty cup, and you got to look after yourself always, every single day. And today it was very much about reinvigorating yourself by being part of nature. Thank you for the stories of being outside many times every day. You're very welcome. Welcome to all. See you soon. Bye, everybody. Lovely to see you. Bye.